When I was putting together the homily for this week, I had one of those moments of thinking, I may have told the story that I'm going to tell now. And so I had to do some consultation with my press agent, Brad. And Brad said, yeah, you've told that story before. And then I look out today, and surprisingly, I see many members of South Haven St. Basil Church, and I'm sure they're going to say, we heard that story before. But I'm still going to tell it. Because I think it has a good message as we reflect on the gospel today. In all cultures, we kind of have those moments which we call rites of passage. In the Hispanic community, we have the quinceañera, which is the celebration of a young woman at 15 as she transfers into her later teen years and eventually into those times of great decision. Amongst the Jewish community, young teen boys often participate in the bar mitzvah, again, a rite of passage. And then the Native Americans, not all, but there are some tribes of American Indians that have a rite of passage for their young men. So let's say young boys from 14, 15, maybe 16 years old. And what happens is that the group of elders take that young person into the woods, and they place him near a specified tree, and then they let him know that he's going to remain there alone. No food, no cell phone, no iPod. He's going to stay there the whole day alone, and even through the night. And as they are to do that, the concern, of course, is that there might be wild animals. The darkness can get pretty freaky if you're not used to it. The time there to be alone of the sounds that you might hear. And so the young person is left, and he goes through this whole night experiencing all this. And then suddenly the dawn comes, and the light starts to come down a little bit. And the person feels, the young boy begins to feel a little bit of more peace of mind that this is over. And then he has the biggest surprise of his life. Right next to him nearby, there's another tree where his father walks from that tree up to the boy. That the father was there the whole night, watching over his son. Not letting him know he was there, but be always ready that if something were to happen, he was there to take care of his young boy. In a certain sense, that's the experience that we heard in the gospel. That here were these disciples who we're told it was nighttime, the end of the day of the resurrection. And they had been there, they heard of the death of Jesus. They heard rumors that he had risen from the dead, but they hadn't seen him yet. And so here they were, gathered in this room, frightened, unsure, wondering if everything that had happened with Jesus, all that they'd been involved in, was just one big disappointment. They were frightened. And then Jesus comes through the door, we're told. And he had been watching all the time. He had been with them, even in their moments of struggle, in their moments of confusion. Jesus appears before them, and he offers those wonderful, consoling words. Peace be with you. Didn't lecture. He didn't chew them out for what they had done. He just said, I'm here. Peace be with you. Things are going to be okay. And I invite us today that maybe we could ponder on the two sentences that we heard near the end of that gospel when we were told, have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, yet still have believed. That's us. That's you and I. Well, I make an assumption that you haven't seen the physical presence of Jesus. But I think it's a fair bet that we haven't. We have experienced Jesus. through the Eucharist. We've experienced Jesus through the goodness of people around us, but we haven't had that physical gift yet. And these words then are really meant for us. We have not been blessed by the physical appearance of Jesus, and yet I think it's fair to say we have faith. If we believe in the witness of the apostles, we can believe that Christ is near even when his presence is not so obvious. Even when his presence is not so obvious. When we have to face a crisis in our life, when we lose someone that we love dearly, when we are hurt by someone that we had trusted, when we have to face the consequences of a terrible mistake we've made, we want to know that Jesus is behind the tree, watching over us. We desire his presence. We want the assurance that he will be with us. Easter tells us that even when Christ is not visible to us, we are visible to him, that he never stops watching for us and over us. We want the confidence at Easter of knowing that he is with us to help us to make those important decisions of our lives. When we face sickness, when we realize that our life is coming to an end, we want to hear Christ say to us, "Peace be with you." I love an author called Richard Rohr. I think he has so many beautiful things to say. And he tells a little story I'd like to conclude with that I think too speaks of the apostles' experience. And he talks about an experiment that he did with a wall-eyed, well, not he did, but some scientists did with a wall-eyed pike. And he put him in an aquarium. And pike was swimming around, and he figured it was, he needed to be fed, and so they got together some baby minnows and threw them into the aquarium. Well, the pike pigged out, had a great feast. It was eating them, and they're putting more in, and it goes for several days. And then the scientists said, let's go further with the experiment. So they put in the middle of the aquarium a piece of glass, separating the pike from the minnows. Well, the pike sees the minnows swimming casually on the other side there, and he goes swimming real fast to them. Bang, he hits his nose right against the glass. Spins around, kind of dazed, goes back, starts off again for the minnow, boom, again. Does this several times. And then he begins less and less to move towards that way. And stays a little bit further away and swimming around and a little bit confused, but he doesn't go back to the glass. So the experiment goes on a little further, and they take away the glass. Well, the minnows come running towards the pike, and the pike doesn't eat them, doesn't even try. And the minnows are within touching distance of him, feeding distance, and eventually the pike dies. And I bring that little story because I think in the experience of the apostles, Jesus wanted to say to them, don't give up. Don't stop coming to me to be fed. I am alive. I am still with you. I have never abandoned you. And so Easter really is part of the great message, is to tell us never give up. No matter what the obstacles, the risen Lord will feed us and restore us to hope. Faith in the resurrection means we do not need to be afraid. Although at times we may seem like we are standing alone and only crashing into obstacles, Easter faith tells us that Christ is watching and guarding us through the long, dark nights of our life. He's behind the tree, offering peace be with you, and reminding us of the mystery we talked about last week, that love always wins.